So I'd begin by asking you a very simple question. What is this thing that you talk about all across the world really about? Is it truly about science, or is it about power?
Thank you, Minister, and thanking again to ThinkFest for putting this together, as well as the EU delegation for supporting this session. Well, I have the feeling that with your comments and questions, this is going to be as interesting as challenging, because some of the topics that you want to cover seem to not have like easy and straight answers. But following your question, trying to put a bit into science diplomacy, into a framework, into a definition, what do we understand by science diplomacy? Usually when we talk about science diplomacy, we refer to the use of science and technology in building international partnerships. That could be how we use traditional diplomatic channels to create more and better scientific cooperation, so countries coming together to facilitate joint research projects between countries, or facilitate mobility programs with researchers and so on. But also the other way around, how, particularly when political relations between countries might be not in their best terms, how science and technology could be a good reason, a good excuse, if you allow me to use this concept, to start cooperating. And we have some traditional examples of that during the Cold War and so on, and more contemporary examples of how science and tech cooperation could be a good reason to work with others, even if we are not in best diplomatic relations, because we share challenges. Because we all know that issues like climate, like global health, like water scarcity, AI governance, it's not about borders. I mean, those are like global issues, so we need to cooperate with others because the problems, the challenges are shared. So this is some of the examples or uses of science diplomacy. And then obviously, how do we use scientific knowledge? How do we use data? How do we use evidence to inform better foreign policy? For example, usual things we talk about when we talk about climate. We have Paris Agreement, or all these agreements that usually come up after all these COP meetings. We talk about thresholds. We should avoid to increasing global temperature more than 1.5 degrees compared to whatever. These figures, these numbers, are not just politicians or diplomats waking up one morning and saying this is going to be 1.5 or 2. No, it's like scientific evidence with groups of panels and experts from all different scientists from different countries coming together to say, okay, this is really the threshold, or these are the right measures. So this is how science can inform diplomacy or international relations. So these are some
Alexis, let me cut you here. So if you were saying, if science was truly as neutral as you're saying it is, and as benign and as boundaryless as you claim it is, then 10 countries of the world that produce 70 to 75% of the carbon burden of the world would be consuming 85% of the financing. So 10 countries, 2 countries produce 40% of the carbon burden, 10 countries produce 75% of the carbon burden, and the same 10 countries that produce carbon that increases temperature that you're talking about take 85% of the green financing. If there was that kind of real neutrality, if there was that kind of real flow of diffusion of innovation and diffusion of technology, then this would be distributed to the countries which get affected the most, and the producers of destruction won't be the receivers of financing. So how do you, I mean, talk about neutrality as you've claimed that this is a benign framework in which we work together, we put together these programs, we go for real science. Where really is it happening? And if this diffusion was truly taking place, then why is there not so to say, a non-lopsided scientific platform between the global north and global south?
That's a really right point. I was just like trying to frame, like the theory and the best practices of science diplomacy. And as you say, we might maybe give or have the assumption of this neutrality for science. That's a theory, I agree. Then when it comes to people, then when it comes to governments, then when it comes to real life, things are not so ideal, things are not so neutral, because there are interests, there are priorities. And this is when things get less ideal and magical. So I'm not saying science diplomacy is the magic bullet that fixes everything. I'm just saying that how we can use science to leverage better relations. You're totally right. Regarding climate,
show me some evidence.
I mean, we have plenty of cooperation between countries, even between North and South. I mean, mainly based in Europe. through the Erasmus Plus program, we get plenty of Pakistani students coming every year with sponsored programs where they study in Europe and then they come back.
If I may cut in, I was just at this.
When you go out, you are the knowledge ecosystem or the innovation ecosystem of Pakistan or whatever country. So you have to be able to put out there a narrative of what are you bringing to the world in terms of different technologies or knowledge that you produce. And I would say this is the number one recommendation. I mean, you need, like working groups, a table of dialogue, whatever you want to call it, to first make sure that the science diplomacy strategy is not something that just one ministry is, or one person or one institution is putting together, but it is more like collective. And I know then this is very challenging because governance works really different in different countries, and some countries hierarchy might be more important than in others, but I think this is recommendation number one. Make sure first.
एक बार फिर आपको बताएंगे लाहौर में इंडिगो टावर में आतिश ज़दगी, मिनटों में रिस्पांस, लम्हों में एक्शन, 180 जानें महफूज कर ली गई हैं। मरीम नवाज की बरवक्त और क्विक रिस्पांस